Well, I am just getting ready to clean up some of these raw castings of these cleats that I have cast. And before I get started doing that, I want to show you one of my favorite tools for cleaning up bronzes like that. And they are flap wheels and flap discs. So if you're not familiar with what flap wheels and flap discs are, is they are, in this case it's a wheel, and it is a whole bunch of abrasive pieces of sandpaper that are attached here at the center. Now what's nice about these is that they give a little bit, and that when you're working over the surface you don't get dents in it like you would with a flat disc. So I've got three things here, three tools that I primarily like to use. And they are this is a flap disc. You can see it's this series of sandpapers on there. The other thing is they last quite long. The wider this is, the longer that lasts. Now one of the nice things about these is they tend to kind of contour to the work that you're working on. As you can see, this one that I've got in the grinder here, where the edges is kind of rounded over, which is really important when I'm getting kind of into corners and rounded spots in the casting. Now the other two things are flap wheels, and this is a flap wheel that goes on my die grinder here. And you can see the same thing is true here, where it has become rounded, which is really helpful when I get into those tight rounded places on those cleats. And then the final one here is one that goes into a Dremel tool, and again you can see the same thing has happened. It's just a little finer tool, and it can get into even tighter surfaces. Now these come in a whole variety of grits and also sizes, and you can see here's one that is for the die grinder, which is quite wide. So something like this would work really well when I had a bigger, flatter surface that I needed to grind down. So they come in all different grits, and I tend to use primarily 80 grit when I'm cleaning up the rough casting. And many times I'll move down to a 120 when I'm getting a smoother finish. So these are important tools if you're ever finishing bronze or any kind of metal work for that matter, are flap discs and flap wheels. So let's get started cleaning up this cleat.
Stay tuned till the end of this video when Bob announces the date of the official launch of Skylark. A quick thanks to all of those who participate in Patreon. Thank you for letting us provide these videos free for all. Check out the link in the description if you'd like to help out too.
This, I believe, is the last piece of bronze that I need to make for Skylark. Now, it's been quite a journey. In fact, the first piece of bronze that I fabricated for the boat was way back in March of 2021. So over those 3 years plus, I've learned a tremendous amount about bronze fabrication and casting. In fact, I've made over 44 different pieces of bronze for Skylark. So the first pieces that I made were the chain plates and the stem band. So let's take a look back at some of the other bronze parts that are already on the boat. In looking back, I've organized the videos on a playlist. Check out this link for ease in finding them. The first is episode 42, where I installed the chain plates and stem band. In episode 57, I cast the mooring cleat. Episode 59 was the casting and manufacture of the pintles and gudgeons. In episode 61, I cast and fabricate the traveler rod. In episode 63, I fabricate the jib club tack socket, the gaff jaw bail, and throat tang. Episode 64 is the casting and assembly of the cam cleat. Episode 65 was the making of the gooseneck assembly. Episode 68 is the finishing and installation of the bow chocks, the boom crutch socket, and combing clips. I sculpted and finished the mast cone in episode 69. And finally, in episode 70, we install the mast partner. So what remains to be installed on the boat are the bronze blocks and the cleats. So let me show you what these different blocks are and where they belong on the boat. So what we have here are 10 blocks, and I'm going to go clockwise and explain each one of them. So we have here, we have 2 blocks. Both of them have crossover shackles on them, and they are for the peak halyard and the jib halyard. So these then get connected to the mast cone. The next one here is a block with a span hook on it, and that is for the gaff bridle. We then here have a throat halyard, also some people call it a cheek halyard. We have a block with a plain hook, which is for the throat halyard. And then we have 2 blocks that are front shackles, and they are for the main sheet across the boom. We then move to a block with a traveler link, which goes across the traveler bar. So we move over here to where the jib parts are, and these are 2 deck bows. And this is a short block that is hooked to the jib bail. So this gets hooked to the jib club. And then the next one here is again another short block with a deck bow. So what happens is the line starts here, goes through this block, and then into this block, which then takes it back to the cockpit, and then it can be tied off here with a jam cleat. The other cleats I have, there are 4 cleats here, and one is for the peak halyard, one is for the throat halyard, the jib halyard, and this one is for tying off reefing. So let's take a look at the sail plan, and I'll show you exactly where each one of these blocks goes on the boat. So we'll get started with the blocks for the jib. Now I'd already mentioned that on the starboard side there's a deck bow, which would be the opposite side here, and that then the line goes from there up to this short block with a bail that goes through the jib club. The line then runs down until it goes back to the deck again, and then gets onto this short block with a deck bow, and then from there the line runs back and gets tied off on a jam cleat. The next is the jib halyard, and there's a line that is hooked here to the sail that goes up to a jib halyard block here that has a crossover shackle on it, and then that line goes down and gets tied off on one of those cleats. So if we move over here to the mainsail, then we will first look at where here the line would start at the mast cone, and then it would go here to a block with a span hook, which is this. So the gaff bridle here would go through this, and then the line would come back over here to the peak halyard like this, which is just like the jib halyard that has a crossover block on it, and then that goes down and gets tied off on a cleat. So then the next thing we have is the throat halyard, and it begins here at a mast bail. It then goes down to a plain hook that is on the throat tang, goes through this, goes up to the cheek block, which is this one here, also known as the throat block, and then it goes down and gets tied off on a cleat. So the next part to explore here is the main sheet. So the main sheet begins here at the boom, goes down to a block with a traveler link, which is this one here. It then goes through this block and goes up to a front shackled block like this, and here another front shackled block, so the line goes through here and then down, and at this point it goes onto that jam cleat which I had showed you earlier. So now we'll start installing all of these blocks, especially the ones that need to be actually fastened to the boat. So I'm going to get started with the traveler link. For the deck bows, I ran a string across the top of the deck beam in order to locate the holes for those bows. Well, I'm not super happy with this jib block here on this deck bow. It's a short block. I think it would work a little better if it had a traveler link on here. Fortunately, I did cast an extra one, so I think I may change that out, change this pin out, and add a traveler link in there. I measured over 8 inches for the jib bail. This dimension came off of the plan. I've got this hatchway that fits up on the fore bulkhead in order to make that front compartment watertight. So the panel that I have here, I have already put a piece of oak backing on here. You can see the back, I've got bilge paint on it. So what I need to do is to put my cleats on here, and what will happen is the mast will be in front of here. So I brought the mast over so that I could sort of visualize what that is going to look like, so then I can kind of figure out where these cleats need to go. I've got the mast centered here on the panel, and I've positioned my cleats so the edge of this comes in 1 inch, so I'm in 1.5 inches, so I'm good there. So I've got to decide how I want these to be. One way was to line them up like this. The other way that I was thinking is putting them all on a little bit of an angle, like that. So I don't know. I'll have to play around with it and see which one I like. So this is a configuration that I think I've landed upon by staggering them a little bit. And also I moved the reefing cleat over closer to the mast, which basically it'll work better if it's closer to the mast. So anyway, I am going to mark these, drill them, and screw them on there. fits nice. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to order some cup finish washers to put on here to seal that up properly. And I've got those on order with Fairwind fasteners. If you've never used Fairwind, if you need fasteners of any kind of, especially if you need any kind of bronze fasteners, you should check out Fairwind fasteners. They're really fantastic, and Rob does really well and gives you amazing customer service. Anyway, I've got those on order. While I was sitting here, I strung a line on here to see where it hit, where the jib sheet hit the combing. So what I've got here is a piece of half-round brass that what I've decided is I'm going to bend that around here, maybe start about here and go up to about there. What happens is this line will chafe the top of that combing, and by putting a piece of brass on there, that half round will match the half round that's already on there. That should relieve any kind of chafing that would happen. So I'm going to get this cut off, get some holes drilled in there, and then I'm going to mortise this out so I can set that in there flush. Well, I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. So it's going to get us one step closer to the launch. And the launch is going to be on June 28th. And it will be out at the Mystic Seaport, and it will be during the Wooden Boat Show. So if you're planning on coming to the Wooden Boat Show, the launching will be on Friday morning. So I certainly hope that if you're there and you can make it, I'll be excited to have you as a part of the launch. Now, in conjunction with the launching, there's going to be a commemorative t-shirt campaign that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks. There's also going to be some special offers for those of you that are Patreons. If you're not a Patron, this would be a good time to join up. So, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you the next time on The Art of Boat Building. And remember, if you're going to make it beautiful.